Alrighty, since the toolbar is pretty simple, we're going to go ahead and write the markup of it first, and then we will style that, and then we will add the functionality. So go ahead and hop over to your source client components toolbar.js, and let's write our markup. So the markup is going to be added on attach, on attach, and we're going to say const add button equals, and we're going to write in some HTML here. So, okay, so the HTML we're going to write is going to be an A with an href of nothing, a class of add-button, and then inside the A tag, now we have a couple options for formatting this. I could break this out like this if I wanted to, or maybe do it like that. And then inside of this, we'll have an I with the class of fa-plus-square, and then we'll have it be self-closing, and then we'll say next. So that is going to be our add button. It is yelling at us, of course, because we haven't imported jQuery. So again, that's a very important thing to do, to make sure you have ESLint installed, because it really does catch common errors. And then let's go ahead and add the button to our element. So I'm simply going to say add button dot append to this element, and we'll save that out. And we're still getting an error because it hasn't been used yet. So let's see here. Let's just take out this declaration for now, so ESLint is happy. And what we have here is our section playlist, and it looks like there was an error. Reference error, blah, not defined. Cannot check for update. Full reload needed. Okay, so something went wrong. But we can just refresh and everything's happy again. All right, now we have this next button, or this add next button, and it doesn't look very good. So let's go ahead and style that real fast. So to style it, we're going to open up our playlist SCSS, and then above playlist items, I'm going to create a new section called toolbar. And for the toolbar, I'm going to start off with html.notLoggedIn section.playlist.toolbar. I'm going to say display none. And that should make our toolbar disappear, which it does up there. But we want the toolbar to be visible while we style this, so let's go ahead and log in real fast. I'll log in as bleh. And now we have our toolbar being displayed again. All right, now with that done, let's go ahead and actually style it. So I'm going to say section.playlist.toolbar. And instead of this, I'm going to say padding bottom is 5 pixels. Background is going to be, border-panel. Flex grow is going to be 0. Flex shrink is going to be 0. And the border bottom is going to be 2 pixels, solid, darken, background by 5%. Save that out, and we now have this toolbar. Now, you'll notice that our playlist, that header right there is the header of the playlist section has that additional border, and it's kind of making things look not so good. So let's get rid of that border for our playlist section. So I'm going to scroll up here to the top, and then on the section playlist itself, I'm going to go ahead and add in a rule to remove that header. So let's go ahead and do that. Underneath this, we're going to say greater than h1 to just select this one header, and I'm going to say borders none. Save that out, and as you see, we have now gotten rid of that border. So now everything is awesome. So let's scroll down and finish off our toolbar. Toolbar is very simple. For our toolbar, after we've styled the top of it, we're going to simply style A elements within it. And I'm going to say, for the A elements, I'm going to say display inline block. Font size is going to be 10 points. And then, let's see. Text decoration is going to be none, so we don't have that nasty underline. The padding is going to be 2px on top and bottom and 5px on left and right. Our color is going to be lighten color information by 10 pixels. And the border is going to be darken background by 20%. And then I'm going to say ampersand hover to make a hover state. And the hover state is simply going to say color is color highlight. Save that out. And we now have an awesome button. But the button doesn't do anything yet, so let's fix that. All right, so if you want to take one last look at this CSS, because I'm going to be closing this and moving on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to re-add our const add button equals that. But before we implement this, I am going to create two operators. I'm going to create two new extensions to observe RxJS. So I'm going to open up source shared and then open up operators. And I'm going to write a couple handy little operators here. The first one I'm going to do is observable. And actually, I'm just going to do observable. I'm not going to attach this to the prototype. And it's going to be called from event no default. And it's going to be equal to function of element and event. So it's very similar to the from event. The only difference is, well, you'll see that in a second, it's simply going to be return observable.fromEvent element event, but then I'm going to add a do. E goes into e prevent default. So by subscribing to from event no default, you're going to have this .do in here, which will prevent the default behavior. And we often do that with link elements, with anchor elements, so that the browser doesn't try to navigate to wherever the href points to. And then after that, I'm going to create another one, and it's going to be observable.fromPrompt. And from prompt is going to be equal to function prompt text. And this is going to create a whole new observable. So we're going to return a new observable that takes in an observer. And this is simply going to be a const result equals window.prompt, prompt text. And then I'm going to say observer.next result. And then I'm going to say observer.complete. So the from prompt observable will simply show a prompt, a standard JavaScript prompt thingy. And then it'll return the result of whatever the result of that prompt was. You could do something more exciting with this, maybe show a jQuery dialog box or something, any sort of asynchronous operation to receive a prompt, and you can model this as an observer. And it makes things awesome. So I'm going to close this window, so if you want to take one last look at from event no default and from prompt, then we can move on, so if you want to pause. Otherwise, let's go ahead and use these. So let's close this out. And inside of our toolbar, we need to handle a click event. So I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to import observable. So up here at the top, I'm going to say import observable from RxJS. And then I'm simply going to say observable.fromEvent no default add button click. Then I'm going to do something cool. I'm going to say flat map empty goes into observable from prompt. Enter the URL of video. And then I'm going to say .filter on URL goes into URL and URL.trim.length. Then I'm going to, well, for now, let's just go ahead and comp subscribe. So comp subscribe, this URL goes into blah, and I'll say alert adding URL, just to make sure that this code works. So we'll save that out. And now we can come over here and we can click next. And that might not work because our hot reloading might have broke because we changed shared code. So that's okay. We can just reload manually and then log in. Now I can hit next and I get into the URL of the video, type in something and saying adding blah, blah, blah. So with that little amount of code, we've created this observable sequence or pipeline that handles a click event and then shows us a dialog window, then makes sure we type something. Like, for example, if I just went here and just hit enter, notice how nothing happens. If I did this and typed in a bunch of spaces, nothing happens because because of the filter. But let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's actually add a video. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, I need to reference the playlist store. So I'm going to add a reference to the playlist store here in the constructor. I'll alias that out to _playlist equals playlist store. And then before I forget, I'll come over to the component that instantiates the toolbar, which is going to be playlist.js, I believe. When he instantiates the toolbar, I'm going to make sure to satisfy that new dependency on playlist store. So I'm going to say this _playlist. So make sure you pass that in, otherwise things won't work. The next thing I want to do is on the playlist store itself, I'm going to add a new method. So let's close all that out. Let's open back up the toolbar. Let's split our window, jump down to stores playlist. And on the playlist store, I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to create a new method. And the method is going to be called add source money URL. And for now, it's simply going to return observable of How about this? Observable of error goes into there was an error. And then I'm going to say dot delay 1 second. How about there was an error plus URL, so ESLint shuts up. And we'll fill this in the next video, but for now I just want to make sure it works. So how would we add this adding of the source into our pipeline? Well, it's very, very simple. Underneath this filter, I'm going to flat map again. Remember, think of flat mapping as forking the observable sequence and tacking on another asynchronous event. So I'm going to say flat map goes into this playlist add source money. Whoops, not empty. We need to capture the URL variable. Add source URL. All right, so before I go ahead and test this, take a look at the code one more time, because we pretty much probably going to be ending the video after this. So let's go ahead and hit F11, come back here, and hit next, type this in, and we say uncaught, oh, add source. Remember, stores can't be hot reloaded, so we do have to do a hard refresh. Add this. We don't get any result, or says adding blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what's going on is our comp subscribe. I never fixed that. I do need to actually go in here and write in some logic. I need to say, instead of URL, the comp subscribe is now going to receive result from that add source. So I'm going to say if result and result.err, then alert result error.message or unknown error. Oh yeah, to simulate sorry about that. To simulate our error handling, the observable of has an error, but the error isn't a string. It's actually an object, so that in the future we can add potentially more things to this. So it's an object of message goes into that. But anyway, all I'm doing right here is testing the error condition. So make sure that you have this added code. Don't really care about this because we're going to be removing that line of code in the next video. Let's refresh and make sure it works. So let's log in. Hit add, hit next, wait a second, and then we get there was an error, blah, blah, blah. So now our code is working. So now our toolbar is, for all intents and purposes, done. We just now need to write the code that actually, well, does the thing that that button is supposed to do. So with that, I think we will see you guys in the next video.